Welcome to an episode of In the Clinic podcast. With me today is Smit Patel. He is the Crick Buzz USA correspondent, and he is covering the T20 2024 World Cup happening here in the US and in the West Indies. In fact, the first game is today, happening only a few miles away from where I am right now in Dallas. Welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me on the show. Pleasure.
So, first of all, as we know, today, June 1st, is the first match, US-Canada, this evening. Question for you, and this is part tongue-in-cheek, part real. Do you think there'll be more people at that match or more people watching the Texas Pickleball Open happening just up the road in Rockwall and Hamilton, the Broadway production of Hamilton happening at the Winspear Opera House? What do you think there'll be more people?
Hopefully, we'll get more people. Actually, the first target is for us to surpass the tally of the number of people that were present in the game in 1844
That's true.
between these two countries.
Between these two countries.
By all accounts, by all historical accounts, I think the game was attended by 5,000 people, and they cumulatively bet around $200,000
Wow.
on that game in that day and age, which is around $3 million or $2.5 million in today's money. So yeah, hopefully, and to the best of my knowledge, I think they've sold about 60% up until last night. So it's a race against time to beat that magical figure of 5,000.
5,000. Let me ask you this. Do they mess up on who should be the opening match? It's a Saturday night here in Texas. There's no other sporting event happening here. Nobody cares about the Texas Pickleball Tournament, although that is happening it is being broadcast on Fox Sports 1. Should they have had a defending champion England or India or Pakistan instead of US, Canada? Or as the host nation, was this the right thing? I just think that my feeling is they missed a trick by this is their Saturday night. This could have been their big buzz, their entry into the US market by having a big name team come on Saturday night and play in front of a packed audience.
See, there are two ways of looking at it. I think if you were to spread the game to the non-Commonwealth public, you know what I mean by non-Commonwealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who don't have roots to who don't have direct roots to
cricket,
the
sure.
South Asia or Caribbean or England, Australia, whatever. So if you were trying to sell the game to those audiences, I think it was the perfect way to. This was the perfect curtain raiser. USA versus Canada, arch rivals. Home game for USA in Dallas. Dallas is as American a place, as it can get, basically. But then, okay, I think that was the right way to go about it. But then you cannot have tickets as costly as what, $80. I think the ticket. I think the cheapest ticket was $80. If you're trying to sell a game to the new audience, you have to. You cannot rip them off. Like, I'm not gonna buy something if I don't know. I'm not gonna buy something at this rate if I don't know the experience I'm gonna get. Right?
Correct.
You build towards that particular price value. Like if it's diving into the unknown, I'm gonna buy a ticket that's gonna cost me $80, $100, $150. So I think the ICC may have kind of missed the trick in terms of pricing the ticket correctly.
You raise a very good point, especially when you live in a big city like Dallas. There's lots of sort of competition for your discretionary income dollars, where to spend it, and especially in sports. In a city like Dallas, we have the Mavs who are about to embark in the NBA Finals. You have the Dallas Stars who may make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, and then there's year-round sports. So you're right. For someone who's new, for a family of four, $500 for something that you don't know, which comes back to the next point. Do you think the ICC, by having this in the US, is trying to raise the grassroots profile? My comparison is this. In 1994, FIFA had a World Cup here. And at the same time, they started the MLS. And there was a real grassroots effort to grow soccer or football here in the US. And that was by and large successful. I don't think that's the same sort of focus or plan from the ICC this time. I don't think their focus is to raise the grassroots profile of cricket. I think this is more of a money-making scheme to try and get those who have discretionary income a chance to sell tickets at exorbitant prices to the diaspora.
There are two things about it, and I'd like to elaborate on that. I would like to touch upon one more point I think we missed in the previous question. They could have easily replicated the MLC model of pricing tickets,
Yep,
right? MLC had more superstars coming in than a USA Canada
Canada.
game, right? So I think, and I think the MLC ticket started at what, 30 or $35,
35
if I'm
bucks.
not
Yep.
wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So they could have easily replicated that model for this game as well, and you would have had people coming in. It's a completely money making scheme, I guess. First, I think and if they wanted to do it in a right way, they would have started the process back in 2018, you know, and built two state of the art world class stadiums in America for $35 million, first of all, and not a modular stadium that's going to be, uh, kind of gone, completely vanquished,
Yep.
from your conscience, in a matter of a fortnight. So, and how cricketing infrastructure is in the US, right? It's like gold dust. It's as priceless as gold dust. So I think, first of all, they didn't get the planning bit right by leaking dollars, by leaking $35 million. It's $35 million gone down the drain, basically. And apart from that, I don't see any sort of marketing or market segmentation, or targeted marketing towards people who have no connect to the game, people who have had historically have had no connect to the game. I'll tell you a story. In the 2019 World Cup, the primary targets for the 2019 World Cup organizational committee were the concert goers, the thrill seekers. So all of their online channel marketing was targeted towards those sort of market
Fans.
segments,
Sure.
right? So, and I don't see those sort of things over here. And apart from that, okay, now you've attracted that particular audience, sill seekers, concert goers, people who haven't had their taste of cricket in their life yet. So those sort of people came over there in 2019 in England, and how England has been losing the public conscious, how cricket has been losing the public conscious space. In England, because of the way because of the way cricket was taken off from the terrestrial TV after the 2005 Ashes.
Yep.
So the ECB, in harmony with the ICC, devised or designed those sort of programs to get the people back to get the people back to cricket. And so this was one part of the plan, and the second part of the plan was to, okay, now you attended a game of cricket, right? Now I want to continue my association with cricket. What am I going to do? So, and how there's a huge club cricket culture
The
in
UK.
England.
Yep.
So they gave away all the affiliated, and these are not the county cricket clubs. These are the clubs underneath the county cricket
Sure. The
clubs,
grassroots clubs.
the grassroots clubs. So they gave away $1,000 each to every club to shore up its infrastructure, for a TV, for a big TV, for a Wi-Fi. So now, if I've attended a game in person, I was then invited by the volunteers at the stadium to my own neighborhood club to watch the second England game, to watch the third England game. They had watch parties.
Sure.
So there was a lot of grassroots alignment, with grassroots connect that they were trying to make between those first time, between the people who were trying to attend the games for the first time. So I don't see this on the ground at all over here.
No, you're right. And even basic stuff. So, for example, you look at the logo. The logo
Yeah.
doesn't even mention the sport. The word cricket doesn't, it's not part of the logo at all. It's just, you have to assume that someone who sees a logo knows what sport they're even talking about. So
Yeah.
it goes beyond. You're talking about higher level marketing. They didn't even do the basics, which is disappointing. But again, it shows this disconnect because I thought last year the MLC did a fantastic job at promoting,
Yeah.
uh, at basically creating a franchise cricket league from scratch. The stadium that the Grand Prairie Stadium was fantastic, and it was a well attended franchise tournament. And I wish they'd taken some impetus from the folks that organized the MLC. Um, this didn't seem like the left hand knew what the right hand was doing in the USA. And part of that, I'm sure, is the lack of cohesion within USA cricket. Part of that is, sometimes I wonder what the ICC's big picture plan is for cricket in general. But you're right. They dropped the ball on many stages.
Yeah, yeah, that's completely correct. See, MLC kind of had a base in place in the city last year. Like when you go around talking people over here, and when you just spring, spring something like a World Cup in front of them, what they say is that, oh yeah, the World Cup that's happening in 2026, right?
Correct. The FIFA World Cup.
The FIFA World Cup.
Yep.
So which is like 2 3 years down the line, they're talking about that first instead of something that is happening tomorrow.
Yep.
So I think they did not invest in monetary resources or human resources or physical resources in spreading the word over here. They were banking upon the diaspora. They were banking upon the Commonwealth diaspora to support this initiative, support this money making venture for the ICC. And it's gone wayward. It's gone awry.
The problem with that is the diaspora is going to support it regardless because to them it's a novelty, it's a once in a lifetime chance. But I think they missed a chance to really open up to newer fans, which brings me to my next question, which is the ICC's overall plan. If you look at the timings of some of these games, so for example, in Dallas, the U.S. Pakistan game is at 9:30 on a Thursday morning in June. Now, clearly, that those matches are tailored for the subcontinental audiences.
Yeah,
Um, Same thing, the India-Pakistan game on June 9th, again, a Sunday morning. Um, these are not matches that are conducive to building a local groundswell of support.
yeah.
And in some ways, it just seems like ICC tournaments have basically become a way just to have India play a bunch of different countries, and that's it. You look, for example, how the second semifinal in Guyana, regardless of what happens, if India reaches that semifinal, they will play in Guyana because of the timing of that match can be a morning time so that people in India can watch it, which gives them a competitive advantage because they know beforehand if they reach the semifinal, they'll play in Guyana. You have historical data for how that pitch plays. Um, and I think I understand that TV money is far more valuable than the match going public, right? Whether that's the NFL, whether that's baseball, whether that's soccer, you make far more money in broadcast revenue than in sales. But what I would say is that for the ICC, who has an event every 2 years, this could have been one event whereby they they basically highlighted the match going fans instead of the TV public. Because you have a Champions Trophy next year, you had a T20 ODI World Cup last year, you had a T20 World Cup the year before, you had a T20 World Cup the year before that. At least one tournament you can try and sort of say, well, we understand broadcast rights are important, but let's try and make the fan experience in a new market much better. What are your thoughts on that?
People think ICC runs the ICC. People think BCCI runs the ICC. Both of them are, incorrect statements. It's the broadcaster who
Yes,
runs the ICC. It's the broadcaster who runs the BCCI as well. So because there's a lot of money at stake, right?
correct. Eyeball viewers is what bring eyeballs is what brings money in. It's not about the
it's
match going public.
yeah,
It's about those sitting in front of the TV who will subscribe to Disney or Hotstar or Sky,
yeah.
and so on and so forth. That's what drives the revenue of all
So
sports.
yeah. Yeah, it's like me and you running a business, right? If my revenue is, if 90% of my revenue is, is coming from one customer, don't you think it's gonna dictate terms to us?
It does, but I
On
think
Yeah,
they could have salvaged, they could have sort of sacrificed one tournament to at least, if that was their goal, to increase the grassroots. But we've already discussed that earlier in this podcast. That was
yeah.
clearly not their goal.
Yes, and they could have taken a leaf out of MLC's book as well.
Yep,
What, the the greed, I should say, or the temptation for MLC would have been a lot more than the ICC, I guess, to
absolutely.
stage the games during subcontinental prime time. But I think they decided to wage a longer battle, right? They decided to kind of dig it in, if you can speak like that. So I think MLC is taking the longer route vis-a-vis the ICC, which wants to, kind of reap profits right away, without kind of having boots on the ground, without taking the pains, without taking the efforts to spread awareness, to spread the game. It's not wholesome, to simply put it like that. And if it's not wholesome, this is, this was what was going to turn out at the end of the day.
Let me ask you this final couple questions. At the end of this tournament, do you think this tournament will be remembered for the Caribbean leg or for the US leg? Do you think the US leg will at all be memorable in any way, shape, or form, apart from, say, if there's an India-Pakistan thriller on June 9th?
That's the only saving grace, I guess, for the US leg of the World Cup, or if USA manages to spring a surprise against India or Pakistan. Otherwise, it's set to whiz past your memory, fairly quickly. Because again, this leg this is not the last leg of the tournament, right?
Correct. It's the first leg.
West Indies is the last leg of the tournament, and that is what kind of lingers around in people's memories at the end of the day. The winner, or a casual upset, or an odd upset, I should say. So I get, if there is an odd upset by USA against India or Pakistan, which looks unlikely at the moment, then there would be a tendency to remember the legacy of this World Cup, or the legacy they could have built the legacy of this World Cup
Could have
in
been a
in a
world-class
far,
stadium. Yeah, like you
yeah,
said.
two world class
Yeah,
stadiums for $35 million or
yeah.
$40 million. And that the generations would have reaped the rewards of
Yep.
those two facilities. and
No,
and,
it
and even and they could have also strategically partnered with MLC. MLC doesn't have stadiums, right?
correct.
MLC needs to have at least five more stadiums to make it a home and away tournament, which it intends to do. So the possibilities were endless, and the results have been terribly depressing, I guess.
I think to me that's the
What's
biggest
transpired has been terribly depressing.
I think to me that's the biggest takeaway, the lack of partnership from the ICC with the MLC, which really could have been a game changer for the future of cricket in the US. Um, because I think the MLC is here to stay. I
Yeah,
think they had a wonderful first season. I think they will have an excellent second season, and so on and so forth. I think their franchises are committed. The ownership groups are smart. They know how what works, what doesn't work,
yeah.
and I just think that they missed a trick in this World Cup.
Yeah, it's I mean, and it's not good for the game. It's not good for the health of the global game, because see, this was a chance to grow the game in the biggest media market in the world.
Yep,
If ICC had a wholesome view towards it, in 10 years time, in 15 years time, in 20 years time, they could have made, you know they would have started making money from America as well, right? Instead of just depending on the BCCI, instead of depending for revenue on the big three, they could have made a different power center in North America as well.
yep.
Yeah, if they would have played the long game. But yeah, I mean, you sow, you reap what you sow at the end of the day.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on. Wishing you a wonderful tournament. I know you'll be busy driving around. Dallas is unfortunately it's pretty widespread. So I know from the Gaylord where these teams are staying to all the way down to Grand Prairie, it's a bit of a trek. And
Yeah.
but best wishes to you. Thank you for taking the time out. I appreciate it.